Andy Kaufman, the Nickel, and Nikola Tesla are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is May 16th, 2022. It is the 136th day of the year. We got 220 days left in this year. It is the 20th Monday and the 21st week and the 58th day of spring, 36 days until summer. If today's your birthday, keep in mind that the whole thought of a birthday celebration originally started, I don't know if it's an exorcism or what you want to call it, but it was sort of a gathering of people on someone's day of their birth to make noise with noisemakers and things like that to chase away evil spirits. That's how it all started, and then we started getting them every single year, and we started getting presents somewhere along the line. Here's another little fact about birthdays. If we take account all birthdays in a year all over the world, which month do you think will have the maximum number of birthday celebrations? Take a guess, and I'll tell you at the end of the video. Today is National Sea Monkeys Day. National Sea Monkey Day on May 16th each year celebrates the tiny brine shrimp that swim around mail-ordered aquariums. Yeah, I got some when I was a kid. I think several times, if I remember correctly, and I don't think many of them ever lived much more than a couple weeks. I always thought they were going to turn into those little talking, walking things that you saw in the comic books. They never did. They were just brine shrimp. Sea monkeys actually came about because of the popularity of ant farms. Harold von Braunhut invented the sea monkeys and hatching kits in 1957. He did most of his advertising through comic books, and he once said, "I think I bought something like 3.2 million pages of comic book advertising every single year, and it worked beautifully." All right, let's see what else May 16th has given us. 1842, the first major wagon train heading for the Pacific Northwest sets out on the Oregon Trail from Elm Grove, Missouri, with 100 pioneers. 1866, the United States Congress establishes the nickel. The nickel, like we all know, is a 5-cent coin struck by the United States Mint. But most people don't realize it doesn't have that much nickel. It's actually 75% copper and 25% nickel. At least that's how it was when it was first made. The nickel has a lot of history. I find it very interesting. I know it's not really a subject people get into, but there's also a thing called a hobo nickel. A hobo nickel is a sculptural art form involving the creative modifications of small denominations coins. Like, you basically mess with the engraving and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. This is the type of thing you see on late night History Channel back in the, early 2000s. At least that's where I learned all that stuff. I like to call it Insomniac TV because I don't sleep until like 3 in the morning ever, so I watch a lot of weird stuff back when I used to watch cable all the time, and I gained a lot of weird knowledge. 1868, the United States Senate fails to convict President Andrew Johnson by 1 vote. Andrew Johnson was the first president to be impeached. We've had 3. We've had Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump twice. Now, in case you don't know, the impeachment works like it goes through Congress and they vote and they impeach you, so you are impeached. I'm kind of broad brushing it. When it goes to the Senate, it's kind of the penalty phase. So do they decide to remove you from office or not? And that's what happened to all 3 of our impeachments. Now, a lot of people think Richard Nixon was impeached. He was not. He actually resigned before they voted, and then they decided not to vote. Now, when it comes to Johnson, the primary charge against Johnson was that he had violated the Tenure of Office Act. This was a thing that was passed in March of 1967 by Congress. Johnson tried to veto it, but they had the votes, so they basically overrode his veto. Basically, he had removed from office Edwin Stanton, the Secretary of War, who the act was largely designed to protect. The act required that the president had to seek the Senate's advice and consent before relieving or dismissing any member of his cabinet, or any federal official whose initial appointment had previously required its advice and consent. If Congress and the Senate had to give the okay to this person, he had to get the okay to fire him. He didn't do that. 1874, a flood on the Mill River in Massachusetts destroys much of 4 villages, killing 139 people. 1988, Nikola Tesla delivers a lecture describing equipment which will allow efficient generation and use of alternating currents to transmit electric power over long distances. Basically, this was a little bit different than the way Thomas Edison was doing it, and by most accounts, this would have been more efficient. I'm not a scientist, but I've always heard that it would have been a better system. 1951, the first regularly scheduled transatlantic flight begins between Idlewild Airport, which is now JFK International Airport in New York City, and Heathrow Airport in London, operated by El Al Israel Airlines. 1969, the Venera program, Venera 5, a Soviet space probe, lands on Venus. 1988, a report by the Surgeon General of the United States, C. Everett Koop, states that addictive properties of nicotine are similar to those in heroin and cocaine. I've mentioned this before, but there is a great movie called The Insider. It's got Russell Crowe, it's got Al Pacino, Christopher Plummer's in there, Bruce McGill, Gina Gershon, Rip Torn, and so many others. It is a great movie. It's about how the tobacco industry was finally exposed by a man named Jeffrey Wigand, Dr. Jeffrey Wigand, I guess. He worked for a tobacco company and blew the whistle on him. If you watch the movie, you just realize what we kind of already know, how toxic and how just destructive the tobacco industry has been over the years and the things they did to this guy to try and shut him up. Anyway, if you ever get a chance, see that movie. 1991, Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom addresses a joint session of the United States Congress. She is the first British monarch to address the U.S. Congress. I did not know that. 2011, STS-134 launched from Kennedy Space Center on the 25th and final flight of the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Movies released on May 16th, 1986, Top Gun. Yes, this was a pretty good movie. I loved it back in the day. They got another version of it coming out, Top Gun Maverick 2022. Comes out on May 24th, so like 8 days from now. The new one has Tom Hanks, Val Kilmer, Jennifer Connelly, Ed Harris, John Hamm. I went and saw Doctor Strange yesterday, and the preview looks pretty good. I might actually go to the movies and see Top Gun Maverick. Born on May 16th, 1944, Danny Trejo. He's one of those guys that was in all kinds of movies forever. Nobody really knew who he was. You knew his face. It wasn't until I'd say the last 10 years that he really kind of became known. He always showed up in different TV shows and movies since forever. I mean, his first role was way back in 1983, but he always showed up as like some kind of hoodlum, a cholo or whatever. And then he started, playing other parts. This dude is getting some work done. Right now, if you look at his IMDb page, he has like 25 things that are in post-production, completed, or they're filming it right now, and he's involved in all of them. Anyway, in case you don't know who he is a Mexican-American film and voice actor who became known for his roles in 2007's The Grindhouse and 1986 From Dusk Till Dawn, in 2010 the slasher film Machete. He was also in Breaking Bad. Now, there's a reason he always plays a hoodlum. He was for a while. He became the lightweight prison boxing champion while serving an 11-year sentence for robbery. He was also on Sons of Anarchy. Died on May 16th, 1984, Andy Kaufman. He's an eccentric TV comic and performance artist who developed a cult following for his pranks and his Saturday Night Live routine. He appeared as the foreigner Latka on the popular TV sitcom Taxi from 1978 to 1983. If you ever watch his biography movie, which, take it for what it is. Apparently, he was quite a pain in the ass on Taxi. As a child, he would lock himself in his room alone and put on a comedy show for hours at a time. When he started performing professionally, he would often play a recording of the theme of the Mighty Mouse cartoon and lip sync the chorus only. And he'd just stand there tapping his foot. It was actually kind of funny and uncomfortable at the same time. He performed this routine during the first episode of Saturday Night Live in 1975. At a Thanksgiving dinner in Long Island in November of 1983, several family members openly expressed worry about his persistent cough. He claimed that he had been coughing like that for nearly a month. He finally visited a doctor. The doctor told him there was nothing wrong. When he returned to Los Angeles, he consulted another physician and then checked himself into Cedars-Sinai Medical Center for a series of medical tests. A few days later, they realized he had a form of lung cancer. But he finally died, and a lot of people didn't think he did. A lot of people thought it was just another prank, and they were waiting for him to, come back and do a comedy show someplace, and he never did. All right, the answer to today's trivia question is August. August sees 9% of all birthdays, and births, I guess you could say. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now, go out, have a productive day, and be nice to each other.